Sabrina the Animated Series, Episode 62, Wiccan of the Sea. The writer probably doesn't have the guts to actually reference the religion of Wicca in this show. After the story wastes my time with blatant padding, the story doesn't stop being boring torture with nothing interesting about it until Sabrina gets instantly told by her aunt to shovel the walk as soon as she gets home. Why didn't she zap away the snow instead of being a psychopath? What are the chances that there'd be mortals outside until Sabrina got home? And even then, every mortal just assumes they're dreaming when they see magic, so she could get away with it. She must be insanely selfish if the idea of wasting magic when she could just get her to do it is that tempting to her. Chloe surprisingly goes inside, even though she just said she'd help her for no reason. Sabrina shovels, and then somehow closing the door causes a bunch of other snow to fall. Why doesn't she zap away the snow when there's no one there to witness them? Why didn't Chloe tell her to do that? She goes on too long about how she hates winter. Hilda did it. Why is she even considering using Spooky when obviously she knows she can warp without trusting a traitor? In the 70s comics, Sabrina warped to Hawaii for a vacation because of winter. This show is literally the worst show I ever saw. I've never seen a show so boring that I kept wanting to skip ahead in it because I knew I would miss nothing. Why is there a stipulation where they have to leave this beach in an hour or they won't be able to get home? They trip and find out they're mermaids. As usual, I have to assume Spooky only did this because he's sadistic, because he would have known they didn't want this. And he had absolutely no reason to think he was morally justified in doing this. Because what was wrong about them hating winter? It's not making her a better person. Why doesn't Sabrina ever tell her aunt to get rid of Spooky because it's obviously ruining her spells on purpose? Sabrina smartly looks on the bright side, and it's also smart of Chloe to agree that there could be worse things. So why did he hold back then? The only reason there'd be a tidal wave over the islands just about now is because of Spooky. How are they talking underwater without gurgling? They didn't expect this, so they would have been trying to talk the normal way, not using telepathy. What is the point of this story? To teach you a lesson that you're evil if you want to break from winter? We don't need a million stories teaching you to not trust a traitor. It's so gutsy that the show actually shows us Salem eat a fish. Then why does it ever cut away from slapstick if it shows murder? I don't care about anything that goes on this episode. The story encourages that attitude by having these ridiculous looking creatures talk on Earth for no reason. So yeah, Salem could have eaten a sentient being. And then having too long without the main characters on screen. What got them all to the dark place was just too forgettable. That's how bad the story is. Them being eaten by a giant fish was forgettable. How are they not being killed by stomach acid? This would only make sense if it was all a dream. How are they finding gold coins here? And won't Spooky know that making them need to find something to get home only creates the risk that they'll never get back home? And the ants will kill him for getting Sabrina and Chloe separated from them? He could have very easily gotten them killed. He really is evil. Chloe tickles the inside of the fish, so they end up getting out and getting caught in a net. It's cool that she was useful, but Sabrina could have done that. Why isn't it ever explained that Sabrina lost her powers as a mermaid? I have to assume that. And you might not assume that because this would hardly be the only time where she didn't use magic to instantly end a plot. Chloe used a seashell to cut through a net. Too bad it could have easily been written that Sabrina had the seashell. And that's why most of the time she was useful just weren't memorable to me. She's never useful for a talent that only she has. Anytime she shows a hobby, it's something that she shares with Sabrina. Then Chloe gets hailed a lot by fish on a throne because she saved the fish. She's gonna be made an ambassador with no qualifications and barely any education. Since when do ambassadors get crowns? I don't see it as in character for the praise to instantly go to her head. It was like this in Witchy Girls too. So it's more like I don't want her to be like this. She tells Sabrina she can adore her too. If she actually wants to stay here, that makes it seem like she doesn't care about her worrying parents. How are they all too stupid to realize that their parents are going to be worried about them? Then the story's padded out with a horrible cheesy song, instead of entertaining content. Eventually they get faced with an evil giant jellyfish queen. She says they have to give her a gift, and if she hates it, she'll eat everything and take it all. Chloe would think that seashell was a good gift. It's obvious that someone evil shouldn't be holding up to her end of the bargain anyways, so they just started giving her a gift out of desperation. Sabrina says she'll take her on and drive a seahorse because it's her only chance to get the hourglass back. I'd like to see her run out of time so the Ents would have an excuse to beat Spooky with sticks and eventually warp Sabrina home. Seriously, why does she think that won't happen if she fails this? What's she worried about? How does she keep forgetting her Ents are magical? The race is boring. She just goes ahead and gets the hourglass. Sabrina says they've got to get back to the island and the fish want to help them. This whole story wouldn't have been resolved if the fish weren't sentient. It's like the writer wrote himself into a corner. It should have taken place in the netherworld. The story could have been written that they had more time. The queen gets sent uncontrollably ahead towards a mountain, and why doesn't she just leave to save herself? What's the point of showing this if we won't see her impact it? When they get dropped onto the palm tree, they grab the leaves and get warped home. The queen lands in the fisherman's ship, and he says he'll get rich. Yeah, she would die because she wouldn't be able to keep breathing. Okay, at least Spooky did get something very good to happen because he got somebody rich. That's what's great about witches. Sabrina, Chloe, and Salem share a group hug. The writer forces Sabrina to say she's happy to see Winter's day when nothing about her suffering would make her think Winter is good. There's also no way Salem would end up hating Tuna. This boring waste of time was about Spooky somehow being trusted again and turning Sabrina and her friends into mermaids when they clearly only wanted a relaxing day at the beach in the summer. And Sabrina could just warp to Hawaii like her aunts did for her in the 70s comic. So again, I have to assume he just did this out of sadism. There's nothing evil about wanting a break from Winter, so this proves he's never been doing this to make her a good person. He could brainwash her into learning her lesson instead of just risking her getting killed. Somehow this cliche-filled, boring story causes Sabrina and Chloe to love Winter instead of hate it, when if that was supposed to be the lesson, the way to teach it would be to show the positive things about Winter. Instead, the only real lesson here is, don't trust a traitor. And there's no excuse for Spooky never getting karma. Looney Tunes is written better. The story's too uninteresting and generic to be worth describing, with almost no magic. And stealing the idea of Sabrina being a mermaid from a 90s comic with a different plot. It would have been better if it did have Wiccans, which The Simpsons had. Why do I have to just assume Sabrina lost her magic when she was a mermaid, so that it makes sense that the story isn't resolved instantly? The characters would have commented on it. How is it realistic that Chloe doesn't tell Sabrina to use magic and Sabrina doesn't think to? Or they don't ever explain that she must have lost her powers? I wonder how Spooky knows that something he puts her through won't cross the line so much that he'll get punished for it. He doesn't, he just takes risks. Sabrina the Animated Series, Episode 63. Chloe finds their art museum tour lame. It's a field trip that bores the audience as much as the kids, so why show so much of it? Harvey and Sabrina end up riding on a spinning art sculpture thanks to Harvey, because Sabrina was trying to get him down from there, and didn't simply use magic to make him float over to her and then tell him he hallucinated it. Why did Sabrina make it spin faster with magic instead of using magic to warp away from it? Like she's proven she can do in previous episodes. She's cutting carrots later while explaining that wasn't her idea. Quigley somehow doesn't believe her. He bitches that she didn't enjoy herself. She has the right not to. Quigley says he decided not to punish her, but instead enroll her in piano lessons. Sabrina screams no. I remember that she still had piano practice she had to do in an earlier episode, so apparently this takes place before it. And then a pickle somehow flies and saves the vegetable from being guillotined. Why have this? It's not like it isn't interesting, but we're actually never gonna see these things again. It's like the writer got bored writing something too mundane, or thought we would be bored. The problem is that we don't have any reason to be emotionally invested in these characters because they're not deep or interesting people and we just saw them. Sabrina finds the piano teacher handsome, so she's happy. So I wonder why she still tells him that her uncle is forcing her to do this and she refuses to be happy. Which just makes me feel sorry for him. Why did he say he sees this lesson as a punishment long after she told him she's doing this under protest? He says he's been punished too, and he used to be in her school. I hate that he speaks too softly. It's too hard to hear him. And again, she levitates just out of love somehow. There's no reason that he would never face her in sheer levitation. She starts lying that she loves art. He lies that she's smart, and that has to be just because he wants to manipulate her into playing the piano. He plays the piano, so she imagines having fun with him as a kid. Why is this whole story about her crushing on an adult? Sure, kids do that, but it'd be a lot less uncomfortable if the genders were reversed. I don't want all this focus on it. It would have been fine if it was just one time. It would have been fine if it was just one moment and then she started being subtle. And this is so boring. I know Sabrina won't go on to play the piano after this episode. Is there any reason this couldn't have been Hilda instead of Sabrina? That would have saved the episode. It's kind of hypocritical of the show to constantly insult soap operas though. It's not written well either. And in this particular way, where he's complaining that all the main characters of a soap opera are idiots, it's the same thing with this show. Quigley sees Sabrina come home happily and smartly wonders if she skipped her piano lesson. She finds out Dave is in the newspaper and begs Quigley to let her go to the concert tonight. Why is Quigley trying to force the whole family to go? Shouldn't he realize it's better to just accept them for who they are? It's not inherently bad to not be interested in what he's interested in. At least the answer is smiling. But wasn't it always obvious she had a crush on her piano teacher because she said, "My Dave"? Why are they going to take so long to catch on? Why would Quigley think that she really loves art and classical music now? If we're supposed to think he's stupid, why are we suddenly supposed to think he's right anytime he lectures her? The idea that she's even dumber than him is so insulting that it doesn't instantly occur to me. There's a giant waste of episode space from an Imagine spot or something of Salem's where I hate looking at people in silly wigs. I wish the story didn't keep having Sabrina talk. She trips too and gives the teacher flowers. She's told she's his favorite student and tells him he'll play great. The story reveals he has a girlfriend who worries too much. At least he shows her affection. But what's the point of making Sabrina suffer without deserving it? Is this just another lazy plot device? Sabrina's mad because the girlfriend's helping play music, and somehow being mad sends steam that burns Salem out of her. Then why doesn't this happen every time she gets mad? She's gone as mad as this in the show before, I'm sure. She also imagines abusing his girlfriend with magic. This is the kind of Imagine spot that caused Angela Anaconda to get accused of being a psychopath. While I liked Sabrina being an anti-hero, this show goes too far. To the point where she only counts as being an anti-hero and not an outright villain because sometimes she shows a conscience. But more often than not, she ignores the morality lessons and wise advice. Why did Salem talk around mortals again? The teacher assumes it was just his nerves, and again Sabrina keeps making it obvious that she hates his girlfriend. It's lucky for her that she's never accused of being racist, which would have been the only possibility she'd come to if she was stupid enough not to know she had a crush on her teacher. It's so lucky that they're all too polite to call her out on it. I guess because she's just a kid. Eventually, Quigley gets told the truth and says her friendship is just that because she's too young for love and her teacher is an adult. He says that she needs to date someone her own age, although someone literally her own age would be kind of unlikely, because most people don't get that privilege. And does have good advice that she should choose someone with similar interests. But that won't be a good thing if she doesn't go on to marry someone with similar interests to her anyways. And she won't because she's interested in Harvey and she never follows the advice of her family. Again, he says he's proud of her just for her to not listen to him. He would have heard her shout that he wouldn't know how that person feels and shout especially loudly that this is agony. Instead, she talks to Salem. Every time something like this happens, everyone else in the house would hear their conversation and go up to Salem suspiciously. Even if they couldn't hear all of it exactly, You'd think they would be suspicious of Salem the second he starts talking to her. Why is he ever trusted alone with her? Salem tells Sabrina to say a spell that terrifies the teacher's girlfriend, because he's evil. Why can't they just keep it simple and explain that Salem hates mortals? Salem gets all of a person's musical talent stuck in a jar, and he plays the piano. But she's not a piano player. She cries and says she can't play the violin and runs out of the room crying. It makes sense that Sabrina would get jealous of a girl and abuse magic, because even the 70s Sabrina acted like that. She also tries to convince him to break up with her, but he says he won't abandon her just because of one mistake. It's so not rude of him to not tell her off for being so evil. Salem's piano playing is horrible. I think he's trying to imitate the melodies of a jazz musician, but it doesn't work with the piano, or maybe he just makes it seem like it doesn't work. Sabrina grabs him angrily, and somehow, despite him telling her to wait and find out about the glitch first, she bitches not caring. He tells her that releasing the power in the bottle will cause the teacher to forget Sabrina entirely. This is insultingly forced. But I'd rather a punishment require her to choose to do something self-sacrificial out of guilt that doesn't benefit Jim, instead of quickly punishing her. She finds out from the newspaper that Melinda and her boyfriend made it big. I guess Melinda always thought she only lost her musical talent from stress that she bottled up too much. Sabrina gets lectured that magic is the easy way and there's no easy answers to love. I'm glad he doesn't punish her, even if that's OC, making every time he did punish her seem needlessly mean-spirited. Instead, he says he'll get tickets to make sure Sabrina will get to see the concert. So, the sacrifice isn't really good enough because it kind of gets undone. They get to know each other again anyways. She says his music moved her and he thanks her and shakes her hand. Why is he even able to wonder if they met before? Magic would be more thorough with memory erasing than real-life amnesia is. I'm sure it'd be able to affect the whole brain just fine. He also agrees to sign something for her, and she plays just a little piano at the end. This uncomfortable episode has too much focus on Sabrina crushing on an adult piano teacher that quickly forced her to go to, when she could have just brainwashed him into changing his mind. She brainwashed him earlier with no guilt. It clearly works better to have her punishments be from her being noble enough to punish herself, unless it benefits Jem. While it doesn't make any sense, it's still good that she had to inconvenience herself to undo the spell. There's worse punishments that could have been written. It just doesn't make any sense because she already met him by the time she cast the spell on her. The reason the plot lasts so long is that it also centers on Sabrina wanting to make him break up with his good-looking girlfriend when he could have easily not had a girlfriend, and it's all because of Salem. Never mind Sabrina being able to use magic herself. It demonizes magic, so it especially sucks. She could have learned the same anti-jealousy lesson if her crush was a 12-year-old. The show doesn't believe in realism, so it wouldn't be above having 12-year-olds have the concert tours. It has Pi be a genius inventor. The story should have been about Hilda, not Sabrina. She's 600 years old and we're already used to her crushing on adults. And Sabrina already learned an anti-jealousy lesson. What's the appeal of having a coming-of-age show that's all about teaching the kid lessons if they forget them every episode and have to learn them again occasionally? So it doesn't actually feel like the character's growing. Instead, the theme of the show is about people constantly trying to teach her to be a better person just for her to forget about it because that's not who she is.